Hey Shahan, it's nice having a podcast. Um, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thank you so much, Sia, for having me. My name is Shaihan, and I'm currently studying a BSc in engineering in electrical and computer engineering, and I'm in my final year at UCT. And yeah, thank you so much for having me on the podcast.
I appreciate it, man. The first question I have for you about your engineering degree is to know what made you end up choosing the degree and why UCT.
All right, cool. So, actually, engineering was something I guess I was like more leaning towards from like a young age. Um, I was always very curious at how stuff was made, and just science and maths and all that stuff was always like a very interesting thing towards me. But I think a major catalyst as to why um, I ended up choosing engineering was because I think somewhere around grade 10 and 11, I started doing more like engineering related projects for school. And yeah, I ended up doing like a full on engineering project by like halfway through grade 11, which I ended up going to the USA and won a medal. And then, just the whole experience of how nice it is like to design something, to construct something, and then to actually have it work after it hasn't worked like for like 100 times before, like all that testing and stuff, and then when it finally works, like the level of satisfaction, it's just brilliant. So I thought, this is what I want to do growing up, and I feel like I have definitely made the right choice. Yeah.
Okay. So you spoke about going to the US and doing your projects overseas. Which school did you go to that allowed you to go to the US? Obviously, I know the answer to this, but like, why don't you tell us about that experience and what kind of projects did you do?
All right, so I went to Star College in Durban, and yeah, it wasn't too bad. I mean, that school was heavily oriented towards science, engineering, and maths, and we had to basically make some kind of project every single year, you know, that we had to go to like a national, like at least a national level to. So, well, if you were selected at school, so we had to present our project in school, and then the top projects at school got chosen for nationals. And sometimes our school at that time was very involved in international project Olympiads, and that's where a lot of us went. And we had to basically make our projects and design them, construct them, test them, and come to conclusions about, what we have designed and constructed. And yeah, so besides, I will get to that project, the one that I took to the US, but actually before that, I even got a gold medal at regional level for ESCOM. Um, so that was the regional level um, like project award that we had to do, and that was actually like based on a hydropower turbine. So that's actually, I would say, probably like the baseline where you could see where I was starting to really get involved into like engineering stuff, and I like building stuff. And that little hydro-powered turbine that I made using actually just spoons and a DC motor, it actually ended up making quite a bit of like enough electricity to actually light up like quite a few bulbs, and it made like around quite a few volts. So that was, like that was also like, one of the like beginning catalysts that I had, that and then now finally moving on to the project that I actually went to the US with. So actually my kind of um, how can I say this? The reason that I did that project, or leaned into like doing that kind of project that I did, was actually because at the time, you know, a close like family friend, yeah, she had gone like involved in like a very serious car accident, and I thought, making things for people that um, that'll help people, that'll like protect the lives of people, and make a difference to the society, is really something that I wanted to do. And I thought, maybe I should do something that's related to road traffic, and that's what. that's when I came up with my project idea, where I basically used radio frequency transmitters and receivers to basically signal whether a car, as it approaches a traffic light that's turning red, it would signal the car that the light is about to turn red. And yeah, so that project, along with the fact that I also incorporated renewable energy models, where basically that whole traffic light was powered by like an adjustable solar panel. So everything combined was just like, um, you know, I thought it was like a really good, kind of way to design something that actually made a difference. And yeah, ended up going to the US and presented my project over there after countless hours of, things not working, things breaking, and so much more, so much stress and everything. But when everything ended up working out, like my final project, my like model that I ended up demoing in the US only actually started working a day before my flight.
Damn.
So that's like a very serious stress levels. After I had booked all the flight tickets and done everything to go there, it properly worked only like a day before I actually went there. So that kind of like a level of excitement kind of induced that adrenaline in me, and I really loved that project. And I told myself, after that moment, that engineering is where I want to go into, and that's what I want to be doing for the rest of my life. Making things that help people, and making things that initially may not ever seem like they work, turning your imagination into reality, and helping to solve everyday people's problems in society and make a difference. And I think that really means a lot to me.
Damn, nah, that's a lot, man. Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy the projects you actually made, starting from the time you were in high school, more or less. Uh, where would you say or how would you say you actually picked up the skills for these projects? Because none of these things sound so easy at all. Like, where'd you learn from?
All right, thank you. So I would say a lot of these projects actually do kind of require a little bit of like maths, I would say. So I was lucky that my favorite subject was maths, and to do any kind of engineering design type of project, maths is quite a bit of a requirement. So I remember when I was young, I used to like, my love for maths kind of drove me, apparently, I would say, towards what I ended up doing. But besides that, I think more than the skills that are required, I think the interest to like want to design something to help people is what drives you. It's what actually ends up giving you that skill. And the more the drive that you have to design something that you want, to solve the problems of everyday people, that motivation to enjoy what you're doing, and like that motivation to just be able to make something that will make a difference. I think just that alone like definitely helps a lot, because I know I was at the time I was watching countless YouTube videos, reading countless articles, doing so much research on how to actually be able to do what I set out to do. And so yeah, so besides the skills, which I will admit, like maths and science is a very helpful skill to have. But I feel like when you have that interest to do it, when you have that urge and the drive to do it, then those things will just come naturally. And yeah, let's say that's how I went about doing it.
Okay. So it sounds like, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you had the natural gifts to start off with. Like, obviously, you put in the work, but that's not the only thing you require. Like, there is some bit of effort that needs to be put in from the person. That's the main factor, if I'm not mistaken.
Indeed.
Okay. So, with these projects that you did, are there any more like newer updates version of these projects, or are there other projects you've been working on recently?
All right, thank you. So I wouldn't say I updated the project that I had in high school, but coming to university, I did like plenty of projects. So within like my first year, I had to build a 4-bit counter. So every time you press a button, it would use little tiny logic gates to kind of count up, and then it would wrap around. So that project I did without any programming, without any kind of like other softwares. I did it without any kind of program like processing unit. So it was purely based off of like transistors and stuff. So that I remember I had like a little breadboard, and the entire breadboard was full with wires and chips and all of that stuff. It was a very messy circuit, and I also only got that working maybe a few hours before my demo. So as you can see, these things always like come right up to the edge. But I mean, that kind of like tests your ability to kind of work under pressure, and you know. So yeah, I think like with the natural gifts, I would say maybe a tiny bit of it helped, but I do think like when you have an interest towards something, that is your natural gift. So if you like, the more you like something, right, you're gonna find yourself wanting to better yourself at it, and that's how you basically hone your own natural gift. And I think everybody has that natural gift, something they incline to, something they just love doing, and it kind of motivates them to do better at what they love doing. And I think that's what happened with me. So yeah, so I would say after first year I went into second year, which I would say was one of my hardest um, you know projects yet. I had to build a well like I had to build a device that would basically take an oscillating um, square wave. So it's basically like current that flows up and down in in a square wave pattern, and I had to put it through a device that would make it a sine wave. So stuff sounds a bit complicated, but I mean that's exactly what it was. So I remember that was a very very stressful project, and um, we had to finish the project in order to be able to graduate. Well, not graduate, sorry, pass that course. And I remember I was in the lab for like 2 whole days trying to get that working. And the kind of like satisfaction that you'd get, that I got when like it started working, like it felt like I had saved my degree almost. So yeah, I mean, the challenges I went through, I physically burnt like quite a few of those electronic chips, and I even touched one and it like burnt the skin off my hand. It was very hectic stuff. So yeah, um, so then I got that one working, and then in third year we had to do a very interesting project where basically you'd be given a like a square grid basically, or a rectangular grid of paper. So like I think it was like an A3 paper with like grid lines on it, and you had to put 4 microphones on either side, so on each corner, sorry, and you'd have to put a speaker anywhere on that grid and play like some kind of sound, and using the sound that that the 4 microphones measure, using those signals, it's supposed to kind of like detect where on that grid that sound source is coming from. So that was also a very very interesting project, which used this probably the most complex one yet. You had to use like all these very fancy things like triangulation algorithms and cross correlation, and that's some very next level stuff. But I mean, as you grow older in your degree, that's just how the level increases. And currently, for my very final year and my hardest um, project yet, this semester that I'm working on a kind of software simulation, a program that will basically simulate what's known as a vehicle to everything communication over the network. So basically, in layman's terms, that would be basically making a simulation program which simulates what the road traffic would look like if all the cars could talk to each other. Yeah. So if all the cars could talk to each other, and they could even talk to the infrastructure like robots or buildings and stuff like that. So I'm making a simulation program that will basically help researchers in the field to kind of um, plan out, if they want to do if they want to implement that kind of vehicle to everything infrastructure, then that simulation program will help them kind of experiment on different strategies to implement vehicle to everything technology. So yeah, that's just a brief overview of all my research that I've done over the past few years. Yeah, and I am looking to forward my studies somewhere in that kind of vehicle technology stuff. Yeah.
Now you've done some crazy projects, man. Yo, I'm not gonna lie, that's some tense stuff. As you've been describing the different projects, I couldn't help but wonder, like, what's the barrier of entry to be able to do these things? Like, I'm sure to get the equipment would cost quite a bit. Is that something somebody could easily conquer, or how does that go?
Okay, so obviously the equipment most of the time is not very cheap, and I'm fortunate to be in the university where my fees covers that equipment costs. However, I have worked in the university and a society, particularly it's named Engineers Without Borders, where they actually use whatever funds they have that they get from their members in the society to actually buy, little electronic component kits. And I was actively involved in one of their projects. It was called Playing with Solar. So basically, they'd go to not too privileged high school, and they would go there and they would be there with the high school students and help them build electronic projects. So the project that I was working with, it was called Playing with Solar, as I said, and they basically made solar powered battery charging kits. So you could basically charge your phone or charge whatever with like the solar panel, so you could leave it out all day and then you could charge your phone with it. And we actually helped the high school kids wire up the components and solder the little electronic devices onto the printed circuit boards. And yeah, so in that way I think there's a lot of outreach for those who aren't too privileged to still be involved actively within the electronics and electronic engineering environment. So yeah, I think I definitely do agree with you that all these projects are very expensive to build, but there are definitely outreach programs from UCT and from other companies as well that do help those who are not too privileged to get into that electronic engineering workspace.
Okay, so the Engineers Without Borders, it's a UCT society, as you said. Is it available to everyone, or is it just select students?
Okay, so initially I was also very confused about that. When I had first, joined the society, I thought it was only for like the electrical engineering students. However, over my years at the society, I realized that anybody could join because they have tutorial sessions for anybody to get interested in, engineering. So I'm like myself, I was also you know, part of a group of people within the society that actually, helped with the training and the tutorials to help people, get comfortable with the developing and building those different projects. So yeah, yeah, even if you're in a completely different field, if you want to join, there's absolutely um, nothing stopping you because the people there, they will definitely guide you and make you comfortable with everything that they're doing over there. So yeah, anybody can join.
That's great to know, actually, that it's really open to anybody that has the interest or anybody that might have the passion to do so. I'd like to know, do you have any work experiences that you'd want to discuss or mention?
All right, so work experiences. Actually, my degree requires me to have a work experience because obviously they don't want to let people out into the workspace not having like known what it is to like work. So my very first work experience, I was working with some heavy stuff. I was working in Durban at a company called Conveyal, and they are the second largest um, conveyor company in like in KwaZulu Natal, I think. So they have like a big factory and they have like multiple parts to that factory where they make different things um, and then they assemble with those different things, they assemble it to become a conveyor. So yeah, in that work experience, I did things like drilling with like a big drill, Um, I did machining. I did fitting, so we actually go onto site and then actually install one of those conveyors. So that was, I nearly lost a finger there. So
Crazy.
yeah, so there's that, and then I also did a lot of like electrical design experience over there, where I had to, wire up a lot of these little devices, power supplies, and things that would basically control the movement and the speed of the conveyors. So all of that was very interesting, very informative. And then I think I went for work experience again, not too late. Oh no, sorry, not too long ago at Joburg. So I went to a place that it's called. Um, let's see if I can remember what it was called. Anyways, I'll get back to you when I remember what it is called. So that company basically they make control panels. So basically for like huge industries, right, that require kind of a deep level of control on like controlling things like conveyors, as I said before, things like controlling just how the packages and everything move from one place to another. It requires like a deep control interface. So I was there, kind of experiencing how the whole process of making a control panel, designing it, constructing it. I was there, experiencing it all. And at first, I went to the design, and they use a very complicated software called ePlan, and they use that to design all of their kind of control equipment and how to like build everything. And then after that, they go in. There's a mechanical side where they actually physically build those panels from aluminum sheets and bars and stuff, and then they cut into those sheets. They drill them and basically make them so that they can be used to actually build those control panels. Then they have the electrical wiring section where they basically are given those you know that frame, and then they basically attach electrical components, and then they wire the electrical components onto that frame. And then finally the actual like the engineers come and they program those modules, those electrical components. And then lastly there's the fitting engineers which go onto site with those completed control panels, install them, and basically make sure that they're running well. Yeah. So yeah. Oh, I finally I remember what the company was called. That company is called Unilec SA. Unilec, yeah, and they're based in Joburg.
Damn, you have a lot of unique work experiences. The question I have for you relates to those work experiences is how did you find yourself getting the opportunities to work at those places? Did you have to go searching for the companies yourself, or does UCT assist the students to find places to work at?
Okay, that's a very important question actually. So I was very lucky because there's someone within my complex, and he basically like we like good friends with him, and he basically helped me you know contact those like the appropriate people that I need to have gotten those work experiences. So I was very fortunate in that sense. However, the university does definitely provide a work experience. You actually can even go to CPUT, which is also linked with UCT, to do like half of your work experience over there. And lots of lecturers are always doing like research, and you can really gain a lot of experience, like work experience, through getting engaged with their research. So even though the university does tell you that it's the onus is upon the student to try to get work experience, they can always just email the lecturer and ask them if they have any you know back work opportunities, and they would definitely be happy to give you the opportunity to be able to work with them on their projects, which are like very high research based projects. And yeah, so there's plenty of opportunities out there, if you're struggling to find back work. And I think in a few days' time, on Wednesday, actually, there'll be the Epic Job Expo, which happens every single year at UCT. It's a very, very fun event. All the large companies come with their representatives to the sports center, and they set up basically like stalls where you can get to like know more about their company and their internship opportunities. A lot of them offer vac work. So yeah, there's plenty of opportunities to basically get the chance to get more work experience and get more used to in being in the working environment. So yeah, there's plenty of opportunities.
Okay, that's good to know about the different opportunities and how somebody might need to contact a lecturer and the expo itself. I'm not sure the episode will be up by then, so this might be a bit delayed, unfortunately. But it is good to know. Um, where do you see yourself working in the future once you're done with your degree? Is there any place in particular or any field in particular?
Thank you so much for that question. So actually, if I were to tell you that I have a clear picture of where I'm going to work and in what field of research I'm going to be working in, or even just field at all, I probably wouldn't actually be able to answer you like concretely. But I do think wherever I do work, um, it will be like in a place where related to engineering, because that's what I always saw myself wanting to do. So yeah, I think I'll be somewhere applying everything that I've learned within my engineering degree. And yeah, so I guess if I were to choose a field of research, as I mentioned, I think you know vehicle technology, particularly electric vehicle technology and vehicle communications, um, that field of research, I'm really looking into that field of research because I've always been a huge fan of cars, and I want my engineering focus um, to be around like cars and traffic and things like that, because I've always loved moving from one place to another. So yeah, I think kind of some kind of vehicular technology is where I'm heading towards, I'd say.
Okay. Okay. The next question I'd want to ask you is to know, let's say there's somebody out there that's considering engineering and they're really on the fence. Is there any key indicators you would have for them to say like you're meant for engineering or you're not? Or it's more of a thing of try out a couple of projects and see how you feel about it?
So definitely, I think there are many things that you can kind of use to gauge and to know just how suitable you think you'd be for engineering. Um, I definitely have known a lot of people that even though initially they looked like they really wanted to go into engineering, they ended up choosing something else. Um, I would say the love to kind of research something to be able to make something that helps the society is a really, really big green flag that you'd want to use to to tell yourself that I think I'm good for engineering. um, I would say for the initial couple of years, you'll have to be doing a lot of maths and physics. So if you find yourself like, really hating maths or physics, I wouldn't really recommend going to engineering because, yeah, engineering, maths, and physics is quite next level, I must say. It's, yeah, it's definitely a huge step up from school maths and physics. So if you find yourself not enjoying that too much at high school level, then it's not maybe a good recommendation. Um, in addition to that, I would say kind of if you like, detailing out like your whole research. So basically, if you're someone who loves, researching, writing out that research, and then, making guesses, hypothesis, we call it, and then actually someone who like loves doing experiments and testing and seeing if it works, you know, I would also say, as you mentioned, I think doing at least one project related to like whatever engineering field you're going into is a huge plus. Like, I know it helped me. It's like one of the primary reasons I even chose it. So if there is an opportunity for you to do a project within that field of engineering, then I would definitely recommend doing something like that first, because after coming into the engineering degree, you're going to be doing a lot of projects. Like every single year, you're going to be doing at least one project per semester.
Yeah.
So definitely recommend doing at least one project. If you're still at high school level, if and you thinking of choosing engineering, then maybe do a project and then see how you feel about the project. You know, yeah. So I think just the love of building something, and just love of designing something, and you know just the kind of excitement that you get when something that doesn't seem like it'll works. um, that's like the driving factor of wanting to do engineering. That's what that's something that should like motivate you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that's basically how you'd gauge if you want to do engineering.
Okay. I have a question for you that I've always really wanted to get the answer to, and I've never really known how to ask the question, but I'll try here. um, I've heard a lot of the time when people study engineering, and let's say, for example, they realize at the end of the degree, engineering is not really for them, or they're not as interested as they thought they were, that they end up pivoting to finance. Could you explain, like, how do the two link, or like, how does somebody end up getting into the finance field? Because it's something I hear about quite often, actually.
Okay, so that is a good question. I personally don't think I know anyone that's branched off from engineering to finance, but I have heard many stories about it. I think what happens is, like a lot of people that end up doing engineering probably do it out of some kind of pressure, or maybe they just feel like they don't know what the right choice is. So when they come into engineering, they find out that maybe they're not very inclined towards doing the physics and the science and the maths. It's not really for them. I wouldn't say engineering and finance have a very direct link. um, but I would say maybe they find out that they're not really into this kind of like technical stuff, and they're not someone who wants to spend all their time researching, trying to figure out a way to do something. So I would say, um, yeah. So when they realize that they're not too suited for engineering, or that it's not like something that they would claim to be their forte, I think a lot of them choose finance because, um, you know, finance is probably like I'm not too, well known about finance, but I do know that finance is a field that's ever growing. People are always finding new ways to invest and spend money, and I think they realize that a lot of people going to engineering realize that yeah, that's what they want to go towards, and that's why they branch off from engineering to finance, I would say.
Okay. I feel like another question, just to what do you call it, follow up to that, maybe a better question would it be, would you say there's transferable skills from engineering, or like common skills between engineering and finance that makes it easier to jump the gap? Because my first thought is like, okay, somebody that's really good at the mathematical side of engineering might be able to get into finance math, but I'm not sure because like I haven't done either.
Well, because myself, you know, I'm not too, sure about what you have in finance. I would say probably the one thing that engineering does kind of develop in someone is the ability to work under pressure. And I know when you're doing finance, then you have these like, well, at least from some of my friends that do finance, say they have like these huge books and textbooks and stuff that they have to cover within a few days. I think engineering is something that helps you, develop your skill of being able to submit things on time and being able to work under pressure. And I think finance does require that a lot because, well, if I had to take kind of an arbitrary, situation, maybe you're working with stocks, and then all of a sudden you find out that some stock is failing really badly and it's dropping really low. Then you need to be able to be calm under that pressure and be able to still work things out. And I think engineering definitely shares that one thing with that finance, that you have to be able to be calm under pressure and not stress yourself out too much. And yeah, I think that's one key skill, I'd say. Engineering would be able to teach someone that's going into a field that's not related to engineering whatsoever.
Okay, I feel like we've actually covered quite a bit in this episode of the podcast. Before we go, I would like to know, is there any advice or golden nuggets of information you want to share with anybody that's watching?
So, I would like to say that in university, there's so many points where you feel like giving up, where you feel like you can't do it anymore, and everything is going astray, nothing is going your way. It feels like sometimes situations are very dire, and you end up failing way more than you used to in high school. So that's one thing. So so I would say never give up. Like always stick to the plan that you set out for yourself. If you know that that is the plan that you've always wanted, and you know always like whatever motivates you, like hold on to that and make it something that you never um, like part ways with, because that's essentially what's going to help you when like when you're in those moments where you feel very down. And you know it could be anything, whether it be your love for reading books, playing video games. Hold on to the things that make you happy, because university definitely isn't something that makes you happy very often. So you're going to need those support factors to make sure that you don't give up and you stay strong on that path to graduating. Thank you.
Thanks for that. I appreciate it. And yeah, I think the key thing that people need to remember is resilience. Like, it's the number one thing that you need as varsity students to just keep going. Like, it might seem a bit dark or grim, but like, you just gotta keep going, do your best. That's all you can really do at the end of the day. And thanks for showing up in this episode of the podcast. I really appreciate it. And yeah, that's it.